you have to be able to heal and move forward. If you keep beating yourself up about it, you know, you're not going to be healthy. So maybe that was the most recent thing I was wrong about. So there's one. I've been wrong once in my life.
My father, ladies and gentlemen.
And right now, all your friends are like, oh, that's where she gets it from.
I don't trust.
So apparently there was an issue with the pause button.
Yes.
Okay.
The whole system just got overwhelmed and wouldn't do anything. It just froze, and then we lost the last half of our conversation.
And was there something
Did
else?
you listen to the first 37 minute?
Yeah,
I sent
I
you.
did.
There was some good stuff in there.
There was. I'm just doing a quick check here. I did listen to it, and I was actually really happily surprised because by the time we got to that, you had already recorded one or two.
The session, the 2.5 hour long one.
You have to edit that out.
Oh.
You just use his name.
Oh, well, I can always bleep it. Yeah,
I know. We'll bleep. Oh, do you know how to do that? Have you learned how to bleep stuff? That'd be cool.
I was trying to teach myself on YouTube tutorials a few weeks ago. I don't think I actually mastered it yet, but.
Okay. But I mean, you can cut out the
just
half
cut
a
out.
second or the 1 second. That's
Yeah.
fine. But no, you sound great.
Okay, cool. And I'm not congested, which is lovely.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but yes, I did.
You could tell in that one I was congested.
I did listen to the 37-minute one, and I could tell you were getting over a cold.
I think though, if for people who don't know my voice all that well, it didn't sound too nasally, right? But
no,
yeah.
not at all. It wasn't like
I definitely was not my full normal
it wasn't
voice.
like, oh, you should have called in sick from the podcast.
No.
It wasn't that bad. But yeah, so I was going to say I did listen to it, and I was pleasantly surprised, because I had a few drinks by the time I got into the podcast, because I sat here and recorded yours, and I remember almost in real time as I'm talking, and we got into the Ukraine-Russian thing and some other topics, I almost felt like I started rambling, and I was worried if I was just repeating myself or sounding just dumb, and it actually wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
No, I thought it was great. I'm trying to remember
and you're right. There was a lot of good content in that one. I wish it wouldn't have cut off, because I can't
know.
remember what we talked about after 37 minutes.
After that was when you went to the shame guilt thing, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was
Which is
really
the original
important topic.
which
that
is the
I
original.
felt so good about that.
Mm-hmm. And then that's the part
And that's the part we missed.
Well, we could do that one now if you want.
All right.
We might as well re-record it.
Okay.
You'll have to remind me.
Yeah.
Because especially after that.
I remember I started, I think it was in relation to all my years of therapy, and how shame and guilt has played such a factor for me. I mean, going back to my childhood and my early adulthood, and through both my, I almost said all my marriages. I've only had 3, and that's fine.
Well, currently on the 3rd.
I'm on number 3,
not past.
and Pam is amazing. Thank God for her. But obviously, just we talked about in the first podcast that your dad's a dumbass, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. So there's a lot of guilt and shame that's been built up, and this has been a really big topic with all my years of therapy with Lindsay and with other therapists, the ones we're seeing currently. And I can't remember exactly where I was going with it, but it was, I think I had an aha moment a few weeks ago where it was, I used to have the mentality that I need my guilt and shame. I want to hold on to it, and I want it to punish me every day.
Okay.
Is that what I was talking about?
Now it's coming back to me, yes.
Yeah, because
to not forget.
I want to never forget, and I never want to lose that feeling, that cringe in your stomach when you remember an incident in the past where you were a dumbass, or you did something really messed up, or you hurt somebody, or you took somebody for granted. I thought it was good to hold on to that feeling and always have the cringe when you remember it so that you never do it again. I thought that was a good thing. And through therapy, I've realized there's a different way to look at it, where you have to be able to observe it so you never forget it, but you do need to not let it still make you cringe, I guess is kind of the way to say it. You want to remember it, but you almost want to be able to look at it objectively, so it doesn't still beat you down, because those negative feelings are not healthy for where you're at currently in your life.
Right.
And I think that's what I didn't get was it's good to remember, but look at it as an observer, and remember it, but don't let it keep beating you down.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what it's doing, is beating you down every
so
time.
like remember what you learned from that mistake or those
the
mistakes.
Experience, but observe it objectively.
Yeah. Don't like carry the guilt in you where you're still beating yourself up about it years later,
and
months later.
Don't feel like, I almost feel like this is too close. Don't feel like you have to go back to the fetal position every time you remember it, which was what I was doing to myself.
And do you think any of that's like a little bit of like not maybe having forgiven yourself yet, and you feel like you still kind of need to, I mean, it's an aggressive word, but like beat yourself up a little bit for it because you feel like you haven't fully.
It's almost like I want to punish myself.
Yes. I know it sounds weird to say,
Absolutely,
but
yeah. Which also means if you still feel like you have to punish yourself, maybe this is the key word, then you haven't forgiven yourself. And you can't truly heal until you forgive yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And if you can't heal yourself, then you're going to bring all that unhealthy stuff into whatever relationship you have, whether it's with your family or your friends or your partner. And yeah. So, and I'm not remembering exactly, but it kind of all comes down to, if you want to be a healthier, happier person and have great relationships, you can't have all that baggage dragging you down.
No.
Yeah, because it's going to manifest itself in every interaction you have with other people.
Yeah. We're not meant to carry the burdens of our mistakes for the rest of our life.
Yeah. I mean, Lord knows a lot of my guilt is past relationships, but I have a ton of guilt over you, I mean, when you were little and all growing up, and there was so many times I wasn't there for you. And, so I beat myself up all the time about that. Like, I could have been such a better father to you, especially when you were younger, and I wasn't. So yeah, that's part of what it's like. Recognize it, observe it, but at some point, I have to forgive myself.
Are you talking to Lindsay about this?
Oh God, yes.
Is she okay?
Oh, me and Lindsay have talked about that for years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even before me and you saw her.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so Lindsay is the one that first started talking about the guilt and shame. And she was like, you have a lot of guilt and shame. That was in some of my first sessions with her. And it also came up in my sessions when me and Pam were seeing her, is she immediately saw how much guilt and shame I have. And, Lindsay's great. She always has the sheets to print out, and the
color thing, or
but there was also other ones that I've given,
Okay.
or she's given me, that just had kind of a list of things. And
you call out is it where you pick a word that you
was the one she showed you, she had showed that to me too. But there was other ones in the past that kind of dealt with shame, and it wasn't so much a graph; it was more just information about what shame does and what it can do to you, and why it's important to kind of work past it. And even my current therapist, Robert, that me and Pam are seeing, we're dealing with a lot of handling guilt and shame, and how to observe it, but not let it. What the word is, not let it cripple you now. I mean,
I feel like this is probably a tough thing for a lot of people, because like there's no rule book as to like how long is the appropriate time to hang on to a guilty feeling in order for you to heal properly, and then also, kind of give yourself the opportunity to learn from that mistake. And like, you should feel bad for a little bit, but like, how long is too long? There's no timeline of like we were never taught as kids, make sure you sulk in your mistakes for at least a month, and then you can release them and be free from them.
Well, I don't want to be controversial, but I mean, there's certain upbringings that do want you to just wallow in guilt for your entire life. That's the basis of their belief. I'm trying to be careful how I say this, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's all based on guilt and shame. They have built an industry on guilt and shame, and it's been very lucrative for them. So. In general, I'm talking about organized religion in general. Yeah. Not anyone specific.
And what is I totally agree with you. I'm trying to wrap my brain around though, like what's the motive for implementing that into an organized group of people? Like, what is the benefit?
because it creates the need for it makes you subservient. It creates a need for guidance
to follow and need someone
it makes you
else to
followers
lead
because
you.
because you have all this. You're taught to constantly be in a state of shame and guilt, and you need redemption. And there's this one person or deity or whatever that can offer absolution.
So it basically boils
It
down
creates
to power.
followers. It's about
power.
power and control. That is exactly what it's about.
Ding, 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 ding.
Which, and God, you might have to edit this out, but
No.
I have been making this joke for years. That isn't it funny how the same characteristics, that unfortunately a lot of religions are based on. And again, there are very good parts. There's very good things about all religions, but I believe they all came from kind of the same origin story. And the beginning and the original purpose of these were actually to help people. You read the Bible, you read the Quran, every other religious textbook that I can't remember the name of.
Are we talking about like providing order?
Providing guidance and recommendations. There's so much good stuff in don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat on your wife, don't kill, all that stuff's good.
Yes.
But
like in the barbaric times.
But over thousands of years, it's been bastardized and it's been interpreted in order to give power to a small group of people. Mm-hmm. It's been manipulated. Mm-hmm. And I was going to say it's power control issues, which is funny because that's the same thing that you would use to describe sex offenders. It's all about power and control. Whether you're a rapist or whatever, it's not about the sex. It's about power and control. Mm-hmm. Wow, I just got super. How many minutes are we in? And I just went off topic.
Don't worry about it.
I'm definitely not going to read the comments on this episode because I'm going to get scolded. I obviously I have strong feelings about this stuff.
I mean, and then the other thing is, so power control, the number one thing. And then I do think there's another category of a lot of organized religious practices or beliefs were originally created or adopted to explain things that the human race couldn't understand before we had science and astronauts and all these things, right? Yes. But it's just it's hilarious to me that now we're in a completely different time.
Now that
in the existence of Earth, and we have technology.
The atom, we have put people in space and on the moon. We can see the basic beginnings of the universe through telescopes now, but we're still holding on to the fact that apparently Mary was a virgin, got pregnant by God. She was a virgin and had a baby. Do we really believe the virgin birth story? Are you frigging kidding me? It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
But again, thank God you're not huge yet, but when you do get huge, people are going to grab these sound bites of the stuff I just said a few minutes ago. So let me qualify my statements by saying, again, there is a ton of good stuff that any religion, any faith can bring: a sense of community, a sense of support, and again, just guidance for how to be a better person. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be religion. It can be, just an agnostic, or not agnostic, but just any belief system that makes you want to be a better person, that puts you on a path to better yourself and to help other people. It doesn't even have to be a religion. It can be whatever belief that you have. Mm-hmm. It can be astrology.
Yeah.
Or
Hinduism, just more spiritual than religious.
More spiritual than religious. Yeah, it can be any of that stuff. So there is tons
energy.
And God knows there has been religions and faith-based groups have done a lot of good in the history of the world. Also have done a lot of bad. A lot of atheists have done a lot of good shit and a lot of bad. We're just humans. Everybody has done good and bad in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. Nobody is more right or more wrong than anybody else. Mm-hmm.
Amen to that.
No pun intended. Judas Priest.
I mean, I always say, if an organized religion, or whatever religion is you want to practice, adds value to your life, like you were saying, in a positive way, where it makes you a better person, yes. You have to be careful.
Now all of a sudden you have to be careful?
I don't want to ever come off as
pretentious or thinking you're better than.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I
'Cause
do.
We're not.
No, but I do believe that, like, we're all very different humans and very unique. And like some people that feel they need something bigger than them and whatever version that is to get them through a season of their life or maybe their whole life, they need some kind of guidance. There could be a variety of reasons for that. And I'm not trying to sit here and be like, I don't need guidance, because I don't consider myself religious, but we're all different humans and we all have different ways of, guiding ourselves or being guided by someone else. Or does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I'm actually, as you were talking about that, because I'm old, so I had thoughts back to a 90s movie, which it's a great movie. It's called Menace to Society. It's a movie about South Central LA and gangs and all that. But there's a scene in there where a father of a high school kid is talking to his son's friend, and he's trying to impart the importance of you have to get out of this lifestyle, to get away from the streets and the gangs. And he was like, so his son, he's a born and raised American, and the father is like I think he's a Christian of some sort. But his son at some point when he became in high school, he discovered he became a Muslim, and he's embracing that religion. And he was trying to explain to his son's friend, he was like, look, he said, I'm no Muslim, but I agree with some of the things they teach. And if Allah can make my son a better person than Jesus can, then I'm all for it. And
this is a movie?
It's in the movie. It's a quote.
Oh.
And his point was saying, whatever changes you have to make, do it.
Yeah.
All that matters is that you are on the path to become a better person.
Yeah.
God, I almost got teared up on that.
Aww.
Yeah. You probably never seen that movie.
What's it called again?
It's called Menace to Society.
Let's watch it.
Have you ever, so you've probably heard about that famous 90s movie, Boys in the Hood.
Yes.
So that was a good movie. This is the movie and I love John Singleton that made Boys in the Hood, but I feel like Menace to Society is the movie he was trying to make. It's more, it just feels more real and gritty for some reason.
I'll have to add it to my list.
It's hardcore and it's real, but it's heart-wrenching.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was the 90s? Came out in the 90s?
Yeah, mid-90s.
Okay.
I was living with, you might not even really remember him, but it was after me and your mom separated and got divorced, and I had that roommate, Brian. You were so young. I don't think you remember him. You were like...
You said 90 what? 90?
95.
Oh,
yeah,
I thought
you
you
were
said
like
99.
3 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't remember.
Oh.
But yeah, me and Brian would watch that movie all the time. Brian Forster. I'm friends with him on Facebook, so he'll appreciate this if he watches the podcast that I gave Brian a shout out.
Nice.
When we were living pretty close to... Remember when you guys lived in that house that was like a couple of blocks from the football field in Monmouth?
Stadium Drive?
Yes.
Yes. Before we were on Susanna.
Yes.
Suzanne.
So Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in an apartment with Brian that was probably 2 or 3 blocks from that when you were like 3 years old. And me and Brian, we were night owls back then, but we would just randomly...
Back then? You're still kind of a night owl.
I'm better. I'm a lot better
That's
right
true.
now.
That's true.
But we would randomly, we'd stay up watching stupid movies like this and doing dumb stuff. And then we would just we would call it, let's go, you ready for a walk? We had this routine for months, for almost a year, where a few times a week we would walk all the way from that place to the Circle K that was across from Mindy's Pizza in Independence.
To get booze?
Just, no, just for the walk. And we would talk and try to solve the world's problems and talk about whatever. We would go down there, we would get chips and a Slurpee or a snack or a soda or something, and then walk back.
Oh, you were like...
But we did it walking. It was the purpose of it.
How long of a walk was that?
Oh, God. I mean, that was a couple of miles each way. So
yeah, I was going to say.
It was probably an hour and a half walk there and back.
Jeez.
I just thought about that. Yeah, we did that several times a week. It was so random.
And not drunk? Just...
No.
Oh.
We would be at home watching movies and playing video games or doing whatever, and it would be 1:30 or 2 in the morning.
That's so deep of you, Mr. What were you, 20?
Well, I'm going to credit Brian on that. So
I just don't know if I would think to do something like that or enjoy something like that when I was that age.
Yeah, I don't.
Yes.
We were just night owls, and it was kind of... Yeah. So that one of those times...
I assume this wasn't in the winter.
Well, no, if the weather was bad,
right.
we wouldn't do it, obviously. If it was raining or something, we wouldn't do it. But we would do it in the winter as long as it wasn't raining.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess because of booze in the beginning, just because I know Monmouth was still a dry town, I think, until 90
Oh,
or
God.
2005.
It was a dry town until
2005 or 2006, I
Is
think.
that about right?
I think
yeah,
so.
I know
I
I
remember,
was gone before it. That sounds about right.
I remember just looking it up one time because I remember someone asking me, well, everyone, when they find out I'm from Oregon before I moved back home, they'd always be like, oh, where? Oh, it's a really small town. You wouldn't know it. Oh, try me. No, you really won't know it. Try me. Monmouth. Monmouth? Yeah, it was population like 6,000 people, I think, when I grew up there.
Yeah,
It's probably bigger now,
right.
but
yeah, it is a little
um,
bigger. But
and the one fun fact I'd give about Monmouth was it was the last dry town in the state of Oregon.
yes, and so I think 2006 sounds about right.
But Independence is like
Independence
basically
is almost the same town.
Yeah, it's
so
just
you could
yeah.
literally walk
Yeah.
500 feet away,
Across the
and
line.
the Circle K was right on the border, so you could go to the Circle K and get beer.
So dry means you can't sell, but you can have alcohol in your home. You can't sell
or
it.
purchase it. But you can obviously have it in your home on private property and drink it.
Okay.
But you can't do it in public, and no business can sell it.
So
and
none of the
nobody's-
restaurants had like
No.
wine even.
No, of course. The
just
stores didn't have
That's
wine.
just such a weird. I can't imagine that.
Well, like I said, I mean, Independence was almost literally the same town, so it wasn't like there was no
Was
alcohol
it that
in Monmouth.
like old? Was it an old school religious thing?
No.
Was Wiles?
I actually know the story, and somebody can fact check me on this, but when Western right when Western Oregon University was founded, the land was granted by a family that owned all the property, and the condition of them granting the property to build the school, which originally was called the Oregon College of Education, I think.
Oh.
That sounds right. Or is that Oregon State? It had a different name. I thought it was the
Originally?
Oregon College of Education, but that might have been Oregon State's original name. But anyway, when they gifted the land to build the university on, the contingency was Monmouth has to stay dry.
The family
that donated the land said, if we're going to give you this land to build a college on, then Monmouth has to stay dry.
Because of their building a college. So it's they didn't want kids to be.
A family owned the private property, and they just put a condition of the gift in. They said.
So then they must have been super.
I mean, they probably didn't believe in alcohol, or maybe they just thought that it wouldn't be good to have people going to college where they could get alcohol.
Yeah, that's kind of where my men went.
Yeah, maybe that was it. But there was obviously
a contract end date.
At some point, there was a sunset clause on that.
Yeah.
Yes, and it expired or whatever, and then instantly, sin overtook the town, and booze was running rampant.
That's funny.
But what was so funny as my time as in the job I did in Monmouth, you can imagine there was no lack of alcohol in that town. I saw it every weekend.
Well, I mean, you went to Western Oregon University for at least a year,
I went
right?
to school there, so oh my god, it was so hilarious. There was booze in the dorms. There was booze.
So college kids, you guys would just drive over to Independence, I
you
imagine.
would just go wherever, Independence or Dallas, which was close, and you would get your booze, or Salem wasn't 20 minutes away. So there was plenty of alcohol there. You just literally could not sell it or buy it through a business. You could possess it in your house and on private property. So you could set out in your front porch and have a beer.
That's the only school you went to, right?
And I went to Concordia for a semester. No, I'm sorry, Portland Community College for a semester, and then I also went to Concordia University after I left Bend for a couple of terms.
Okay, so my question is then, do you think students were drinking more because they were told that they
No.
Well, I guess no, they weren't told they weren't allowed to. They just couldn't buy it there.
No, because I even think even if you go to any major university, you still can't have it in your dorms or the common areas on the
No.
Okay, so University of Arizona, you had the student commons area, and there was no alcohol there, right? You had to go off.
No, to go to a bar off campus.
Right, off campus. So I don't think it was that much different.
Yeah,
I mean, kids were still sneaking beer into their dorm.
It's not like you're in a dry town and the closest neighboring town is an hour away or something, where you'd have to make a trip to stock up.
Any university, public university, doesn't just randomly allow students to bring alcohol in.
No.
So that much wasn't that different, really.
Right. Okay.
It was just, again, you had to go an extra mile or two to get the beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
No big deal. I mean, if you're on a huge campus in some major university, the whole campus itself is probably a few miles across. So like Arizona, I remember you were on the campus, but then you could walk to kind of the main. There was a main.
University Drive or
Is
Boulevard.
that what it was? That had all the like
center one that had the
pizza
bar,
places and the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't that right next to campus?
Literally, you open. There's kind of like, the mall. You remember the part in the center that had the beautiful palm trees?
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
that kind of goes out, and it's like the gates. So it kind of is like the entry to
Mm-hmm.
the campus, and it's immediately you're running into university. And
So
there's actually university like offices, like the study abroad office I remember was over by like right in the building right behind the bar. So there's still
Yes.
university. You're technically still on campus.
Right.
It feels like.
It feels like, because it's literally right
Maybe there's
there.
like so many feet away from like an academic.
Right.
But yeah.
But
well, the religious thing, I struggle with sometimes how I want to share my opinions and thoughts on that, because obviously growing up religious, I have a lot of family that's religious. I also have a lot of friends that are religious. And
Yeah, we
so
both
I
do.
never
Yeah.
want anyone to feel
Yeah, we're not talking down or trying to insult anybody.
no,
That's why
or
I
that I'm
kept trying to
disrespecting
say
what they
that-
believe in,
Right. And I
But
guess
at the
maybe
same time, I also think that like if I'm going to live in a world where other people, freedom of speech, like can talk about, make comments about their religion to people that are not religious, and like it should be also run both ways. And it's not like preaching
Yeah.
to one another. It's more just vocalizing my general thoughts on it.
Well, and maybe another way to explain it for me, at least, is, I mean, everybody has beliefs. The one thing you can say is everyone has beliefs. If you want to label it as I believe in science, or I believe in a certain religion, or I believe in this, or everybody has beliefs. But what I try to express to people, or I live by, is I have beliefs, but I know I'm going to be wrong about stuff, and I want to learn. I want more input. I want people to tell me stuff, because I have certain things I think I'm right about, or certain beliefs. Please prove me wrong. I want more. I'm constantly looking for more information so that I can grow and expand my knowledge. And then after I hear some more information, I can be like, oh, wow, I was wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I learn this, and I adjust my beliefs accordingly.
What's the last thing that comes to mind that someone proved that your thoughts or opinions on something were wrong, and you?
I mean, I'll let you know when it happens.
Oh, it's never happened.
Obviously, that was a
joke. Of course,
joke.
fucking would say.
Obviously, that was
something
a joke.
that arrogant.
God.
It could be a little thing. It doesn't need to
Right.
be like this.
God, I'd have to think about that. It might have been that little epiphany moment with the whole how I looked at shame and guilt, and this was something that came up in my session with Robert just maybe a couple of months ago, because it was after January. You can't leave me here. Your fans want to see you in the picture. It was after my session with Robert, so it was sometime. I'm sorry, it was after January, maybe early February. But when I came across the whole way to look at guilt and shame as it's not something you should keep beating yourself up about. It's something you need to learn to observe and not forget, but don't keep kicking yourself about, because you have to be able to heal and move forward. If you keep beating yourself up about it, you're not going to be healthy. So maybe that was the most recent thing I was wrong about. So there's one. I've been wrong once in my life.
My father, ladies and gentlemen.
And right now, all your friends are like, "Oh, that's where she gets it from." Oh man! I'm just gonna check real quick, but go ahead.
I don't know. It's just interesting, because I feel in times in my life where I've felt guilt or shame, I can understand kind of why you've held on to it, because whenever I can think of so many times just in this past year where once I've reached the point of forgiving myself and kind of moving on, there's this hesitancy of like, have I really punished myself enough? And sometimes even other people, like if other people remind you of your mistakes, you just almost feel like you're still kind of in the, you have the A on you.
Scarlet letter.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Is it an A?
I
was an A.
actually don't remember.
But the letter. Yeah.
But yeah. And do you get the cringe?
It's almost like you have to wait for something else to blow up, or some other mistake from someone else in your community or your group before you can kind of, because people are still, you feel self-conscious, like people are still thinking about it. So then someone else, your partner, or even you need to make some other kind of mistake that's maybe a little bit less before you can move on from that previous.
You almost need a distraction. It's kind of, yeah. Oh my God. That's actually deep. Yeah. I hadn't looked at it that way, but I totally get what you're saying. Oh,
we're onto something, Dad. And I'm sure a lot of that, I know for me, I put on myself. I mean, we're all, you know, our own worst critic. So I think we're remembering things and holding on to things in ways that if we're feeling guilty about it, we're thinking everyone else is judging us and still thinking about it every time they look at us. But in reality, I mean, unless it's like, you know, you cheated on someone and whatever, but unless it's something so intense, most people have forgotten about it by the next day, the next week.
You're right. That's a good point too with guilt and shame is, I guarantee that we beat ourselves up more, and our perception of it is way worse than everybody else's is.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, we, like, you go back and you screw up at work, and for the next 6 months, every time you go in the office, you're just like, oh, every coworker you see, you remember that I did that. But no, they actually have lives.
Yeah.
They have other stuff going on.
They went home to their, you know, kid throwing a temper tantrum
they got
and
their own
got
stuff,
an F in school
They're
that day.
not even thinking about it, but we internally think that we're being judged every time we walk through the office.
No. Because at the end of the day, this is going to sound, no one really cares as much about you as you care about yourself. That is just reality.
Yes. Because they have their own stuff going on.
That's not to say people don't love you, but no one is actually all consumed enough with as much as you are with your own life.
Yeah, no, you're
living in your head all day.
It almost belies a sort of arrogance to think that other people are spending that much time thinking about you. Oh, God.
That's why it's so freeing, I think, when you relieve yourself and just don't give a fuck what other people think about you. I feel like that's so closely intertwined, because then you're not caring about it, whether or not people are thinking about you, talking about you, making assumptions, judging you. And then everything's just more free, and you just can, you know what I mean?
And again, it's almost humbling to say that, wow, I now realize that these people aren't that worried about my shit, because they have their own stuff to deal with.
And then also, to add another layer to it, I do think that when you start to not carry around that guilt anymore, or, you know, simmer in it for weeks and months and whatever, your energy is different. And so you aren't reminding people, because I do think sometimes that would exacerbate be like the right word?
Yeah.
Our own, you know, mistakes or shortcomings,
or
and so you're kind of reminding the people around you about the fucked up thing you did, or the bad person you used to be.
If you still come in with that haze over you,
then it wouldn't be like screaming at everyone in the face, and we could all move on from it. So I guess the moral then is to forgive yourself, like, right away. I mean that's not realistic, but forgive yourself more quickly. Like, I mean, take the time. I think there's a real importance to, like, feeling your feels. Like, that's kind of been something that I've been really, like, digging deep into over the last year. Like, really feeling when you're sad about something, it's okay to, like, be sad in that moment. When you're angry, like, it's okay to be angry, and this whole perception of, like, having to always be happy and always be whatever. But so obviously feel your feels, go through the emotions of grief or disappointment in yourself, but, like, don't linger in it for an excessive amount of time.
Yeah, so wallow in it, roll around, you know, get familiar with it.
You will learn your lesson.
Experience it, but then, again, move on. Forgive yourself and progress from it. Take the lessons you can learn from it.
Which obviously easier said than done, but that's why we have therapists like Lindsay.
Hell yeah.
To help us.
Oh, yeah. That's so funny. I did, I think I told you, but I sent her the link via email for our first session. And then I had a session with her last Monday. And it was so funny. I didn't bring it up, but at the end of it, she goes, "Oh, and by the way, I got your email. I had a busy week and haven't had a chance to listen to it." And in the email, I even said, "Hey, Lindsay, if you have 30 minutes of your life you never want to get back, go ahead and listen to this."
Well, I have a session with her on Monday, so I will maybe see if she's listened to it. I don't want to pressure her, though. But if it sounds like she's interested. She'll probably bring it up. Yeah. Okay.
If she's listened to it. That's awesome. This might be a good place to wrap this episode up. Okay. So, bye, guys.